Hi, this is Tony Ruggiero. Thanks for listening to The Tour Coach. These are the players, coaches, experts, stories, and insights from my work on the PGA Tour at my retreats or my downtown teaching center in Mobile, Alabama. My goal is to shed light and share insights from the people who I've gotten to know and meet working on the PGA Tour and teach it through my career. And I hope this helps all of us play, coach, and teach better golf. If you like what you hear, please give us a good review and take a look at our new Dew Sweepers YouTube channel or the Dew Sweeper on Instagram, where I've taken some time to share videos of help from my teachings, travels, and journeys. Hi, this is Tony Ruggiero here, host of the Tour Coach podcast. Thanks to our great sponsors, Srixon Golf and Bushnell Golf, we're working to help spread the word about the Tour Coach and get more people to download and get more people to listen to it. I have so many DMs every week from golfers, from teachers, just people that are passionate about the game of golf that love our authentic, our raw approach. It's unproduced. It's just natural. It's from my travels, teaching and working on the PGA Tour, teaching at our retreats, just conversations with the very best in the world of golf. And we want more people to know about it. So Srixon and Cleveland Golf and Bushnell and I have teamed up to give away some stuff. And here's what you have to do to win and help spread the word about the Tour Coach. All you have to do is go on to Apple iTunes and give a review of the Tour Coach, then screenshot it, and then post it on Instagram or Twitter and tag Srixon and Bushnell and myself at the Dew Sweeper on Instagram or at Dew Sweeper Golf on Twitter. And what I'm going to do weekly is draw from those people that tag me on social media, as well as Bushnell and Srixon. And I'm going to do drawings for Wingmans, Dew Sweeper books, new Srixon golf balls, and wedges. We're going to give away a ton of stuff each week over the next month. So spread the word about the Tour Coach, give a review, screenshot it, and post it on your social media channels and tag me at the Dew Sweeper and at Dew Sweeper Golf. And we're going to be spreading the word and spreading the love and helping people play better golf. So sitting down here on the Tour Coach, a little phone interview, been trying to coordinate this for a little bit, but he's not only is he busy teaching, he's busy traveling with family stuff. Richard Lee, former PGA Tour player. Richard, you played the PGA Tour for 4 or 5 years, if I'm correct, right?
Yep, that's correct.
I remember like 13, 14. I remember some of my first years out there when I went out there with Lee Williams some, and then Smiley came on and everything like that. I remember you being out there and your name being out there when I was out there with Lee, but played the tour. You've transitioned now into coaching, into teaching, a lot of short game stuff. I know you've got a bunch of young professionals and you're out there in Scottsdale. First, let's just talk a little bit about your transition, like what led you from playing to teaching and coaching, and, you know, how do you apply some of the stuff, if you do, that you learned playing the tour?
Yeah, so Tony, I turned pro, played at University of Washington and turned pro. My first year was 2011 on the Nationwide tour back then, played 1 year there, and then I was lucky enough to get on the tour in 2012 was my rookie year, and then played till 2014. I actually ended up having hand surgery end of 2014. Ooh. It was just kind of a wear and tear injury on my thumb. So like my trajectory path was kind of trending, I guess you could say that. Like 2012, I didn't keep my card, but I went back to Q school, got my card. 2013 was probably my better years. I made it to the second playoff event. And then 2014, like in the summer, that's when my thumbs really bothered me. And then so I ended up getting on a medical. 2015, I played, oddly enough, I qualified for the Chambers Bay US Open because that was my first warm-up event back. And I'm like, you know what? It's in my hometown. Let's just give it a try. And I ended up qualifying. And I'm like, well, looks like I'm going to have to use one of my medical starts and beat up pretty bad at Chambers. But that was a heck of an experience, you know, playing in my hometown. And then the 2016 was a tough year for me. I had about 12 starts on my medical, made one cut, which was actually fourth place finish at Barbasol, you know, but one cut out of 12, which was tough, had a fourth place finish there, and obviously it wasn't enough to keep my card going. But then after that, it was a bit of a struggle. After my thumb injury, coming back, I still had some pain left, but also I had to make adjustments in my swing to, you know, to not have any pain. And that really long story short, I was a guy who had I was pretty I had an extended wrist coming down, not a typical, not a modern golf swing, right? And that's kind of what brought a lot of pressure into my thumb. But that's just how I played, my attack angle was down a couple, and I was a very straight driver of the ball. I was never long, always had a good short game, but that was kind of my game. But after that, I had no choice to try to experiment with trying to kind of turn my wrist down, call it the bowed way to kind of take some pressure off my thumb. But then, as you know, that brought a whole, misses, and I was missing more left because that's just not my style. My matchups didn't match up, basically.
It would be tough to change that, I think. And I think that's something I've watched some other tour players out there from afar, right? It's a struggle for people if that's not how they played.
Exactly. And then, as you know, in tournament golf with the pressure and stuff, you're always used to seeing a certain shot, and you're like, am I going to be able to hit this to this back left hand somehow and not worry about going left under the most pressure? And I struggled. Then after that, I had to go back I lost status. So I went back to Q school. Now it was the web.com Q school. Made it to final stage. Didn't get my full status card. I missed it by about 2 shots. As you know, conditional status back then didn't get you any starts. So now I went down the path of the Monday qualifying and kind of, get into events. So that first year was when I had my first conditional status. So 6 years into my professional career, I had probably had the worst status I ever had. So it was a new experience.
How'd you handle that?
It was tough. I went 0 for 20 my first year in Mondays, as you know. And the hardest thing about that was I felt like I was playing pretty good. You shoot 5 under, 6 under.
Right.
But these wet Mondays are just ridiculously hard.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot from that experience because I realized, my mentality going to that first year as doing these Mondays, I was like, okay, fire at every flag, go as low as you can. And sometimes I thought that was the right strategy, but obviously going 0 for 20, that didn't work out.
Yeah.
So that end of that year, I played some local state opens and any events I can just stay sharp with. Went back to Q school, went back to final stage, or I made it to final stage, missed it by a couple strokes again. So that was really tough.
Mm-hmm.
And which I'm like, man, I went through all that. I'm in the same boat. But that other year, 2018, I actually Mondayed into 4 events, so which was big improvement from the first trying as a Monday. I Mondayed into Phoenix Open and the Riviera, the PGA, and then 2 other web events, which kind of helped me get in events. But it was still those you get a call Tuesday or Wednesday, hey, you're alternate, oh, you're second alternate. It was just out of sorts. So that was my second year kind of doing the whole Monday route. And then 2018, I go back to Q school, make it all the way to final stage again, and then I missed again. So I was like, this was third year of okay. So 2019, I'm like, wow, this is tough. I have 2 kids, 2 girls, and if I'm being very transparent, I blew through all my savings. 3 years of doing Mondays, and
it's hard, man.
It's hard. It is very expensive. And, now I got a family to support. And so I had 2019 was my 3rd year doing the Monday conditional status. Got into some events, got into the US Open at Pebble that year. So I had glimpses of moments where I'm like, what? I feel like my game is there. And then I went back to Q school that year. And this year, I missed out at second stage by 2 shots. So then now I'm kind of like, wow, that was probably if I'm being honest, probably the lowest point of my career, in my opinion, at that point, because I was like, wow, I'm 10 years into my career and I literally have no status. I'm like, wow, this is, I was fortunate enough to get out on the web tour or nationwide tour right out of college. And I was lucky enough to do that and never really had the grind of the mini tours. But it was harder because having experienced the Korn Ferry Tour, the PGA Tour, to going back to having no status 10 years into your career, that was really tough. And my kids were getting older. And those 3 years of doing Mondays, I missed out on a lot with my kids. And that was kind of the point where I'm like, wow, I don't know if I can go another doing what I've been doing. I was just mentally burnt out, emotionally burnt out. And literally in 2020, I was like, you know what? Well, I got to start making money somehow. So it's like, what should I do? And, I had, so I've been part of the whole, I don't know if you know Steve Loy, Phil Mickelson's agent. I've been part of their agency my whole life. And at that time, they owned a couple golf courses in the Valley. And I just actually went to coach. And I said, hey, coach, I'm thinking about kind of taking a break and transitioning. And I know, obviously, I knew Coach was very connected in the area. And I was hoping that he could kind of just get me connected to somebody in the area where they can kind of get me a spot to kind of start teaching. And immediately within the first 10 minutes of sitting down, he's like, hey, go to McDowell Mountain Golf Course. We, just have at it, basically. So he was very generous of me, of him to say, go start. And I was like, okay. And I just kind of started brainstorming ideas and how to market myself and just kind of get my name out there. And I started very slow. And first, Tony, I didn't know if I was going to love coaching or not, or like it or hate it. I had no idea because all I've done was play golf my whole life. So I started started teaching and had one junior player when I first started. His name is Davis. Now he's playing in University of Utah. And had a couple just kind of random people that saw me on Instagram. And I had probably 200 followers on Instagram, so it's not like I had a big following. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start. And Tony, that's kind of how I organically started. I had first month of teaching, I probably had 10 lessons, right? And then just kind of slowly. And I'm starting to kind of learn the ins and outs of coaching, ways of communicating, delivering a message. And when I was a player, Tony, I had a lot of, I had a lot of great mentors, my childhood coach who brought me to the tour. He's about in his 70s. His name's Joe Teal. He's a legend in the Washington area. And I was lucky enough to be around James Seekman, Scott Hamilton, Chris Como, all those guys. I've been able to get a variety of coaching and kind of been able to learn from what the best do and also kind of take what they share and kind of approach and kind of learn their ways and kind of make it my own and try to share the message that, golf swing, whether it's short game, long game, putting, chipping, there's not one way to do it. And there's just learning kind of what the player needs at the time and trying to do my best to kind of give them that approach. So, but yeah, that's kind of how it led me to go into coaching. And this is I've been doing it for a little over 2 years now. And I'm going to be honest, there are times, Tony, where I'm like, coaching is not as exciting. And then there are times, man, coaching is great, so it's I'm learning that whatever you're into, whatever you do, whatever you're passionate about, there are things that you may not like, but I'm just trying to do my best and learn as I go. And, it's been a journey, and it's been a journey that allowed me to, be with my kids more. And as I'm talking to you now, Tony, I'm in Florida following my 15-year-old daughter's soccer tournament. And, Tony, what's really funny, yesterday, my daughter's team actually played against Tiger Woods' daughter's team, and Tiger was there on the sidelines yesterday. So it was kind of a cool deal. And I actually got to play with Tiger in 2013 at Deutsche Bank Championship. So, I kind of walked up to him. I was like, hey, Tiger, remember me? And I was like, he definitely doesn't remember me. But I said hi, and he was like, hey, my daughter's playing against your team. So it was kind of cool. But it was nice to see that he was out here being like any other soccer dad, right, sitting on the sidelines. There was no security. There was security in the beginning, but once the game started, he was just sitting with the other dads, and I thought that was a cool moment. But
I think that's super cool. One of the things you said that I really liked was you said, you talked about basically, you've seen all these guys that are really good at what they do, from Seekman to Hamilton to Como, but you're trying to make it yourself, your own stuff. And I've been through that as a coach, and I've talked about it openly on this. I think sometimes you go through down periods, and we're always going to have down periods teaching and coaching. It's life, right? It isn't always on the upswing. And I found that sometimes there's pressure to start trying to do what other people that you view as being successful are doing. But it doesn't work if it's not you. You got to be authentic. You got to be yourself, and you got to figure out what's your best way to help make people better. Right.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think that's the part that I'm trying to, as I am growing as a golf coach. It's weird for me to say that still. But it's kind of everyone has their way of communicating, and everyone has, because I'm me and you're you, and someone else is someone else, right? Like we all have who we are as a DNA. Like looking as a golfer, we have our DNA as a golfer. And I think as a coach, I have a DNA as a coach. And I forgot who told me this, but he said, you're not going to be the right coach for everybody. And you're
right.
going to have players come and see you and leave, and you're going to have players that come and stay with you. And I'm trying to really take that to heart. And I generally try my best to like invest and care for the player. And ultimately, like, because I was in their shoe before, I always try to have this like open door policy where it's like, hey, please be open with me as much as you can. And if things are not working, please tell me. And you're never going to hurt my feelings if you say, hey, I want to go to a different route. Because, I mean, I've been in their shoe. I know what it's like. And so it's like I try my best to give them that kind of freedom in a weird way, if that makes sense, to say. And I think that's kind of, I haven't had any kind of weird, call it breakups or whatnot, but, you know, I just try to kind of have that open approach where, hey, if he wants to go see somebody else, all I say is, hey, I want you to succeed at what you do. And if I can help you, great. If someone else can help you, that's great. So that's kind of how I'm trying to approach the business relationship side of coaching, which is still all new to me, you know.
Yeah. No, it's different, and it's different. Well, I'm gonna pick your brain on a couple things. One, I always like to hear you say you've been around these great teachers and folks that have had just tons of success. What type of nuggets or what were things that you took from being around the Scott Hamiltons and the Chris Comos and the James Seekmans? And obviously, I know all three of those guys pretty well, and have coached some players with Seekman. And what are some nuggets that you've taken from them that you like that have helped you as you've gone along this journey?
Yeah. With James, he's the first coach or short game coach that I worked with for a few years. And he helped me open my eyes to like the difference between block practice and skill practice / real practice. So like he always said, if we're working on technique, you're only allowed to work on technique during your block session. So you can have your alignment sticks out. You could have any tools you want to use, a setup grid or whatever. You are allowed to think about what you're trying to do technically.
Yeah.
But he said, do not let that take that time, block practice time, take so long. He always mentions like do it for 20 minutes max or 10 minutes a day, like little by little every day. And I really took that to heart as a player, and I took that to heart as a coach, because if you can do those little things daily, it's almost like putting deposit in the bank every day, right? So you're like, oh, I'm going to put $20 in today, $20 in today. That allows you to go work on the skill stuff, which is I call it the bridge between practice and play. Like, and it's like that. I really took that to heart, and I actually really apply that to my students as well. It's like, okay, if we're working on this, let's say you guys do this for 20 balls. And I know you do this as well, Tony, where you talk about ball counts, and I'm a big fan of that. And like say, do this for 20, make it intentional. Really think about what you're doing. Once you're done, you're done. Put your sticks away, put your smart ball away or whatever you're working on away. And now let's get into lie reading, screen reading, or situational base. Let's create a boundary where you're starting to simulate the golf course. So let's just go out on the golf course and practice, And with Scott Hamilton, he is like the best redneck coach I've been around. Like, I'm sure Pro. Like he keeps it super simple. And I really like that approach. And he is very like, all right, do this. Or it's like, oh, Pro, I feel like I'm getting under it. He goes, well, hit down on it. All right, awesome. It's a very like a simple approach, but it makes sense. I've really enjoyed like with Pro, like he always kept it so simple that I really enjoy that. And knowing with the best player, whether it's a best player or an amateur player, I think sometimes I can catch myself trying to explain things almost too much, where that's when like Hamilton's approach comes in. He goes, you know what? Let's just tell the student to just like hit down on it or hit it to the right field. Something where if they're being bombarded with thoughts, let's kind of take that approach and say, you know what? Do this for a little bit. And then let's see how your body reacts to that. And then with Como, as you know, he's a stupid smart guy. And Como and I still talk a lot. He's become a really good friend of mine. I love how he is a critical thinker of everything in a way, where doesn't mean you have to keep things like super like crazy complicated or simple. Like he's almost like the opposite of Pro, right? Like can be as simple as Pro, but Chris is always willing to ask a tough question. Man, this player does this. Why? Ask yourself, why is this work? Why does that not work? And kind of help me like almost have like a 360 overview picture of someone's swing. That doesn't mean that I'm going to say, hey, you have to do blah, 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 blah to hit the shot. But it just helps me kind of ask the hard questions. Say, man, why does this swing look this way? But he's really hitting the shots he needs to hit. So like, but how is that? Why is that working out? You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like he's been able to kind of help me open my eyes to the other spectrum of the golf swing and kind of understanding their body, kind of understanding he's the one that really opened my eyes to matchups. He always used the word matchups. Like, this needs to match with that needs to match with that. And that's why this works. And that's why this could work, but doesn't work because this is the missing piece of the puzzle. So those are the little things that I would say. And one other, coach I forgot to mention is Jamie Mulligan. I'm sure you know Jamie as well, who's another legend. And he is he's kind of like pro too, where he's like the Southern California Scott Hamilton. He's got the cool vibe, the nice sunglasses and the hat, and he keeps this really like chill. And gosh, he's also taught me like the simplicity and saying the right thing, helping me realize when you say one thing at the right time, that has a lot of weight versus you saying 10 things at the wrong time, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's the art of coaching and teaching.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And and Jamie has helped me with my swing. He's been very generous with this. I'll shoot him some of my swings here and there. And he's always like, leaves me these audio messages. He's like, all right, man, that looks good. Keep doing it. I'm like, cool. But like, just like you said, art of coaching, like it's just, he's really helped me with that. So, I mean, I have a lot to learn, but just being around these great coaches and players too, it's like, it's giving me a nice outlook into what coaching could be like and how it works, really. And as you know, golf is such a complicated sport. It's kind of nice to have all these lenses from different angles and, different parts of the country. You got Southern California, you got Cartersville, Atlanta, and you got, it's just like a melting pot of people and just trying to kind of see and experience every aspect. So it's been cool too. And all of these guys have been so generous with their time and generous with their knowledge. And that's what I like about coaching now, Tony, is that I feel like if I reach out to anybody, I have not had one coach say, no, I don't want to share any information with you. No, I don't want to talk to you. Like everyone, like John Graham's another one. He's been It's just like they're so like willing to share. As long as you're willing to ask the questions, I feel like everyone is going to be like, yeah, man, that's a great question. This is what I think about this. So that's been cool. And I think that's kind of where golf is headed. And I think that's how it should be. There's no like such thing as ownership of a player.
I really hope so. I've used obviously the team approach because I've always felt that if you get like, I know I don't have all the answers and I've never thought of myself, to be honest, like I'm that super smart on it, right? Like I know I work hard and I've had some guys get good, but I've always felt like if you're the dumbest guy in the room and you surround yourself with people that are great at what they do and everybody stays in their lane, you got the opportunity to expose a student to some great stuff and really help them, And it would be nice to see our profession keep going in that way instead of, people that think they got all the answers and that if you don't do it their way, you're an idiot. That's the stuff that drives me crazy as I get older in this profession.
Right.
One other thing I wanted to pick your brain on is most of the short game stuff that I've learned coaching and teaching, I've really learned from watching other great players. Like the stuff I learned coming up was good and it probably helped recreational golfers some and so forth. But like just being out there, I mean, even, like guys like Lucas Glover and how he would chip it and how good his hands were. And Smiley Kaufman had a great short game, and I watched him and Seekman work a bunch. And, different guys. Bill Haas was amazing out of a bunker. Like it was phenomenal to watch him and pick his brain on that. So I've always gotten stuff about short game from guys I've taught. Curious about your thoughts on the short game, some of the things that you think are important. I just would love to pick your brain on that for a few minutes.
Yeah. So obviously I had a little bit of James Hickman's influence, but also another guy that has an influence is Jeff Pierce. I'm sure you know Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Another great short game instructor. And, I was able to kind of blend a little bit of, kind of what his philosophies were and what Jeff's philosophies were. And a couple of the main things that I really focus on in short game is I believe that there are different types. There's the wide arc players like the Jason Days, the Steve Strickers of the world, and you got like the narrow arc players, maybe like a John Rahm or Sergio, they can all play different sorts of shots, but like I love to kind of try to kind of keep the low point in front of the ball, and I'm a big setup guy, so like I believe that if you can set up the right way, I feel like your chance of hitting a good shot exponentially grows. And for me, the biggest thing for me in the short game is kind of learning where the low point is. Can we set up our body in a way where we can deliver the loft? And when I talk about delivering the loft, like obviously there are types of shots where you need shaft lean and you need some angle. But at the same time, if we can deliver the loft, and keep the loft in the face and keep the shaft angle kind of where it starts, that's kind of what I like to kind of coach players to. Mm-hmm. But obviously with the better players, I feel like short game is very situational based, lie based, kind of what's in front of you. But if everything is being equal, like you got, some green to work with, you got a good lie. If you're ever in that situation, I like a player to have minimal shaft lean, kind of body, like upper body stacked right on top of the lower body, pretty level everything, and just try to keep it as simple as I can by just keeping the loft on plane. So, obviously it's easier said than done, but like that's kind of the approach that I believe in, and obviously using the bounce. But I think having the right setup allows you to use the bounce the correct way. So I really try to kind of keep everything setup based. Once the setup is right, I feel I can get any player to kind of, obviously with some repetition, get them in the right positions to hit the right shot, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I followed. I followed you on Instagram and just watched some of your stuff. And, I just love the setup stuff because I think even transitions, even into the full swing, I think, I see a lot of folks trying to make moves at a golf ball or hit shots that there's just no way in hell they're set up to be able to do it,
Right.
And I taught a junior yesterday at Doral that was, kid's a super kid, good young player, ninth grade. Just setup wasn't very good. And, he's hitting a bunch of funky shots and he thinks he's talking about his path and his face. And hell, all we did was get his hips underneath him and get the ball in the right spot, and ball started going where it was supposed to. And I think people sometimes are in a hurry to jump past the setup to get to something else in the golf swing when you can affect a bunch of change with setup.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've done that myself too, Tony. Sometimes it's like, you can look at a player and be like, something doesn't look right, or just doesn't look athletic, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. And it's amazing when they get them in the right setup. It's like, wow, that ball acted differently. And sometimes they'll say, wow, I felt like my body was balanced. Sometimes it sounds so simple, but especially with the better players, I feel like those have the biggest influence. And sometimes it's silly to think, but like you said, sometimes it's what you need to look at. You don't have to talk about swing plane, ball position, or your ball position or swing plane, everything got off because your setup was off. Now let's just work on that and get you back on track.
You're 100%. This has been awesome, Rich. I've really enjoyed. I've enjoyed following you, and I've watched just from afar. Watching your journey transition into coaching and seeing that you're having some success, and you're going to keep growing and having success. And you're a good follow, and I appreciate you taking time. I know you've got some soccer to watch and stuff to sit in with me, and hopefully down the road we can hang out some in person, and I can watch you do some short game stuff, and we can have some fun.
Yeah, I would love that, and thank you for having me, and it was really nice to have a chat with you, and then keep doing what you're doing, Tony, because I like seeing what you're doing, so keep at it.
I appreciate that, my friend, and best of luck. Keep going in that journey, man. You're doing some awesome stuff out there, and we'll look forward to catching up soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Tour Coach. I want to take a minute and thank Cordy Walker and Golf Science Lab, as well as my sponsors Srixon, Buick, Bushnell, and Vineyard Vines for helping make all of this possible and helping me share my insights with you. If you like what you've heard, why don't you check out more on the Dew Sweepers channel on YouTube, as well as the Dew Sweeper on Instagram, or go to dewsweepersgolf.com to find out more about my teaching, my travels, and where you can find out more about me.